Hey everybody, welcome back. In this episode, I'm going to give a quick rundown of exactly how many Disney Vacation Club points you need based on your family and your travel preferences. Okay, so in episode 1, I talked all about what points actually cost in the long run and how they compare to cash bookings through the Disney website. So if you want to check that out, that's all in episode 1. In episode 2, we talked all about annual maintenance dues, which are kind of like the HOA fees for your Disney Vacation Club membership. We talked about what those costs are now and what they might look like in years to come. And in this episode, I really want to focus on how many points your family needs as Disney Vacation Club members in order for you to be able to travel the way that your family wants to. So in my opinion, there are 3 big things that you need to consider when you're deciding how many Disney Vacation Club points are appropriate for your family. The first, and honestly the most important thing, is going to be the size of your family. And not just the size of your family right now, but the size of your family maybe in 5 or 10 years. Because again, this is a lifetime contract. So contracts range anywhere from 20 some years to 40 some years, depending on the resort that you choose. So you need to think about what your family might look like in the next 10 to 20 years when you're thinking about your points and how many you want to purchase. Now, you can always go back and purchase more later, but remember, they're going to be the cheapest right now. So points are going to cost the least if you purchase them right now versus if you were to purchase them in 5, 10 years. So the size of your family and the size of the accommodations that are comfortable for your family, that's the number one factor when you're thinking about how many points you need. So just as an example, Disney World has their traditional hotel room. It's called a deluxe studio. And these hotel rooms sleep up to 4 or 5 people, depending on whether or not they have a 5th sleeper, which is like a twin pull-down bed that you can pull down from the wall. So even if they have that 5th sleeper, it's not always necessarily, the best for a family of 5 because of the size of the room. So a lot of Disney Vacation Club rooms are these deluxe studios. So they either have 2 queen beds and a bathroom, or they have 2 queen beds, a bathroom, and then a pull-down 5th sleeper. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Disney Vacation Club rooms are also sold in 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and sometimes even 3-bedroom accommodations. And those 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom rooms, they're called villas, have a full kitchen. They have access to laundry, and they usually have separate sleeping spaces for your family. So you really need to think about whether a deluxe studio is going to suit your family long term, even if it accommodates all of you. Let's say that you're a family of 4, right? So you might all fit in that deluxe studio. That doesn't necessarily mean that long term that's going to be the best accommodation for your family. So for example, right now, my family, we have 2 adults. We have an almost 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. And a deluxe studio room is perfectly comfortable for us. My toddler can sleep in one of the queen beds. My husband and I sleep in the other. And then my son sleeps in either a pack and play or a toddler cot on the floor. However, 5 or 10 years from now, when they're both a lot bigger and a lot older, I'm not going to expect them to share one of those queen beds together. So I need to think more strategically about sleeping spaces in 5 or 10 years and what I want that to look like. And for that reason, my family decided that a 1-bedroom accommodation was really probably going to be like our baseline, and we based our points off of that. And one nice thing about DVC is that if you book a 1-bedroom room that sleeps, let's say 9 people, but you only have 4 people staying there, you're not paying any more or any less depending on your number of occupants in the room. So your number of points that you have to use to reserve that 1-bedroom is the same whether there are 2 of you sleeping there or 8 of you sleeping there. So that's one benefit to DVC. You can expand the occupancy in that room up to the limit without having to spend additional points. So that's consideration number 1, right? How big of a room do you want? What is your family like now? What might your family be like in 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years? So maybe when your kids are older and they're married and you have grandkids, you might want to all be able to stay in the same accommodation. So that's the first thing that you want to consider when you're thinking about how many points you want to purchase. So the next thing that you have to consider is where you want to stay. So location is really important. If you have a preference for the resort that you stay in, and if that preference is important to you, you need to take that into consideration when you're thinking about how many points to purchase and even where you want your home resort to be. So the reason the home resort is important is because you do get a tiny benefit as a home resort owner. So I think I mentioned in the first episode that we purchased at the Riviera. So the Riviera is our home resort. We actually own a teeny tiny deeded real estate interest in the Riviera. And because of that, we can make our reservations at the Riviera 11 months prior to our travel. We can make reservations at all of the other Disney Vacation Club resorts 7 months prior to our travel. So that's something to consider. If you're a family who wants to stay in the Polynesian every time you travel, and that's important to you, then you might want to consider purchasing at the Polynesian as your home resort because you're going to have that home resort advantage when it comes to booking. We specifically chose the Riviera because we really like the Skyliner. We actually prefer the Skyliner to the monorail. We're more like Epcot Hollywood Studios people. So for us, that was really important, especially during like Epcot festivals and things like that, to be able to have that priority booking to stay there during those times. So the other reason to consider whether or not you really have a preference over location is because different resorts have different points charts. So if I were to stay at the Riviera in a 1-bedroom villa, the number of points that it requires is going to be a good bit different than if I were to stay at, let's say, Old Key West in a 1-bedroom villa. So same room type, different locations. So because of that, I might need fewer points if I really didn't have a preference of where we stayed. So that 1-bedroom villa at Old Key West is going to cost a little bit less points-wise than a 1-bedroom villa at the Riviera. So if you don't really have a preference, let's say you're a family that just says, we want to be on Disney property. We don't care where we stay. We just want to have access to the parks through bus transportation or whatever it may be. Then maybe you don't need quite as many points because you can stay in like an Old Key West or a Saratoga Springs resort for fewer points. So it's really important for you to think about that location preference and if you have one, and then to take a look at the points charts for the different resorts and kind of compare like what does a 1-bedroom villa cost at the Polynesian versus a 1-bedroom villa at, let's say, Old Key West or Animal Kingdom Lodge. Like when you make those comparisons, you can see that there is a difference in the number of points that you need. That said, remember that your resort is not a guarantee. So even though I purchased at the Riviera and I have that 11-month booking window priority, I still might not be able to get a 1-bedroom villa depending on the dates if it's a really popular time. And that gets us into our next point, which is the third thing that you need to really consider. And those are your travel dates and your travel flexibility. So let's say that you really just don't care when you travel. You know that your family travels kind of sporadically and that you choose your travel based on pricing and when things are cheapest. And you just have X amount of paid time that you can take from work to leave and go on vacation. If that's you, then you might be able to book a resort at a cheaper time period. So that means you would need fewer points to book the resort in, let's say, June or July versus booking a resort in some peak times like closer to Christmas. If you do have a preference, like for instance, I'm a teacher, so I have to travel either during the summer, on holiday weekends, during spring break, or during winter break. A lot of those are peak times. So that means that I need more points to be able to travel during those windows than I would if, let's say, I just wanted to go for a week in February, right? So you also need to consider that. So what are your travel dates like? What is your flexibility with travel? Like, are you willing to be super flexible, or do you have specific weeks that you like to go every year? The nice thing about DVC is it is a timeshare, but it is not like a traditional timeshare in that you are buying like June 1st through June 10th every year, right? You get your points, you get that bucket of points, and then you decide when you travel based on availability, based on the resort that you want to stay in, and based on your travel dates. So it's something that you need to keep in mind. If your travel is super flexible, you might not need as many points, but if you're like me and there are certain times of year that are really going to be your go-to travel times, and if those are peak times, then you're probably going to need to consider having a couple of extra points. We actually ended up adding 25 points right before we signed our contract just to give us a little bit of flexibility in those situations. So really every family is very different, right? So you need to take into consideration these three big things. What is the size of your family and what do you want your accommodation size to look like for your family? And not even just size, but like for us, a 1-bedroom was important because we wanted to have that full kitchen. We wanted to be able to cook some meals and save some money from eating out the whole time that we're at Disney World. We wanted to be able to do our laundry in the room. Some people say, nope, not me. I'm not doing any laundry on vacation. So think about those rooms, maybe look at some room tours on YouTube and see what's most important to you. Because what you don't want to do is buy enough points just to be able to stay in deluxe studios and then constantly be looking at those 1-bedrooms saying, man, I wish I had just bought, a few more points so that we could stay in a little bit of a larger space. You might also want to think about, do we want to bring people with us when we travel? Like I love to travel with my sister and her kids. I love to travel with my parents. I love to travel with my mother-in-law. So if you're planning on traveling with other people, it's also important for you to consider that when you're looking at how many points you need. And all of this information is readily available on the Disney Vacation Club site. So you don't need to talk to an agent. You don't need to talk to a cast member, like a sales representative. You can go and look at the points charts at any time. So you can see exactly what a 1-bedroom costs at the Polynesian versus a 1-bedroom at Animal Kingdom Lodge. And you can compare those two. Remember, they might change slightly, but these points charts really are locked in for the life of the contract as far as how many total points each resort has to allocate. So they might change a little bit. Let's say, 1 week or one year Easter is a certain week and then the next year it's the week after. So we might see a flip-flop there just because that's a peak time, but they are not going to increase the number of points allocated to the resorts. So you can be pretty safe in saying, you know what, this 1-bedroom room that we really like is roughly 215 points in the times that we would probably travel. Then that's probably a safe number of points for your family. That second thing that you really need to consider is your location. So if it's really important for you to be on the monorail loop, that is true Disney for you, that's where you want to be, then you need to consider what the cost of rooms are at those 3 monorail resorts, right? So we have Grand Floridian, the Polynesian, and Bay Lake Tower, the Contemporary, are all DVC resorts. So you might want to look at those points charts and just kind of see what does the room size that we're looking for cost at each of these resorts. If you're a little bit more flexible, you might explore some of the points charts to see which ones are cheaper and then kind of plan on staying in those rooms instead of those more expensive resorts. And then that third piece is your travel dates. So if your travel dates are super flexible, you're not really married to any certain week or times of the year, then you would have a little bit more flexibility in the number of points that you need. Whereas somebody like me who has very specific times of the year that I can travel, I need to be a little bit more selective. And because of that, I do need to have a little bit more wiggle room in my total points to be able to stay during those different peak times. And then the last thing that you're going to have to take into consideration, and this is my least favorite one, is your budget, right? So obviously none of us have unlimited amounts of money. I just said that I'm a teacher. We all know teachers don't get paid a ton of money. So you need to take into consideration when you're thinking about these 3 things, your size of your room, your location, and your travel dates. Is there anything that you're flexible with or that you can maybe deprioritize so that you can save some money? So when you look at the cost of the points themselves and the number of points that you're going to need, you might need to make some adjustments, right? So let's say I know that I want to stay in the Riviera. I know that I want to travel every year during Christmas week. And I know that I always want to stay in a 1-bedroom villa. When I look at the number of points that I need to do that, it might not be realistic, right? So then I might say, okay, you know what? I still really want to stay at the Riviera and I still really want to go Christmas week, but I'm willing to downgrade it to a deluxe studio. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe that 1-bedroom is really important to me. So then I would need to pivot to a different resort that doesn't cost quite as many points. So you kind of have to play this game. My recommendation would be to do some like hypothetical bookings. So, and what I mean by that is print out the points charts from the DVC website. Think about what your vacations might look like over the next few years and then look and see like how many points you would need for that vacation. So you'll see those points in nightly rates and in weekly rates. What I usually recommend to people is don't look at the weekly rate necessarily because I think it's based on 7 nights. Instead, you can look at 6 nights, which is still a week, and you can add it up based on the price of there's Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday through Saturday is a little bit more expensive. So do some math, do some hypothetical planning, and just see like, okay, what might it cost if I want to do this vacation next year? Or what might it cost if I want to do this vacation in 2028? Know that you can bank your points into the following year and you can borrow points from the year after. So right now it's 2026. So I could technically take all of my 2026 points, which is 325 points, and bank them into 2027. If I were to do that, then I would have 650 points in 2027. I can then also borrow my points from 2028, and then I would have 975 points to travel with in 2027. So I would not have any travel points in 2026. I would not have any travel points in 2028, but I would have almost 1,000 for 2027. And the reason that you might do something like this is, let's say that you wanted to go to Aulani, right? Which is out on Oahu. It's beautiful. It's Disney's Hawaiian resort. It is a DVC resort. If I wanted to go out there and I wanted to stay in a 2-bedroom villa, I might borrow and bank my points so that I can do a larger vacation like that. This is really great for people who don't feel like they need to go to Disney every year. So if you go to Disney every other year and you're looking at these resorts, travel dates, and accommodation sizes, and you're like, you know what, I need 200 points to do the vacation that I want to do, but I only want to do it every other year, then you would only need a 100-point contract and you would bank or borrow your points every other year. So hopefully that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, let me know below and I'll try to explain it better. Okay, so I said my recommendation would be to plan some hypothetical vacations. So let's just run through a couple of hypothetical scenarios together real quick. Let's say you're that person who's pretty flexible with your travel dates and you're okay staying in a deluxe studio. Maybe it's just 2 of you, maybe you only have 1 child and that's enough space for you. But let's say that monorail resort is an absolute priority for you. If that monorail loop is a non-negotiable and you know that you want to stay at the Grand Floridian, the Polynesian, or Bay Lake Tower, but you're willing to stay in a deluxe studio and your dates are a little bit flexible, you might look at traveling during a cheaper time of year. So let's just look at June, because June is pretty cheap. However, I do find that July and August are like unbearably hot in Florida. June is not quite there yet. So it's hot. It's still hot, don't get me wrong, but June is just a little bit more bearable. I've been there in June, I've been there in July, and I've been there in August, and June is kind of like my go-to if I can squeeze it in at the end of my school year. So let's look at June for this hypothetical vacation where you need to stay on a monorail resort, but you are flexible with your dates and you are willing to stay in a deluxe studio. So if I'm looking at a full week in one of these resorts in June, I'm looking at 146 points at the Polynesian. I'm looking at 132 points at the Grand Floridian, or 123 points for Bay Lake Tower. So it's kind of similar, kind of close. So if I'm comfortable in a deluxe studio and I'm flexible with my travel dates and I want to stay in the monorail loop every single year, I would probably purchase a 150 point contract, because that gives me a little bit of wiggle room. If you don't use 20 points, you can bank them into the following year. And then if you decide that you don't want to travel one year, you can always bank all of those points and stay in a larger accommodation like every other year. Now, let's say you don't really care where you stay. You just want to be on Disney property. You want to be in that Disney bubble, but you're not really particular about the resort that you stay in. And let's say you're still flexible with your dates, but you know that you're going to need a 1-bedroom. So maybe your family's like mine. You have 2 small children. It's you and the other parent. And you're thinking, you know what? I know that I'm going to want some separation at bedtime. I'm going to want to be able to have my own space. I'm going to want that kitchen. I'm going to want that laundry access. So I know that I want a 1-bedroom. I know that my accommodation size is my biggest priority, but I'm flexible with my travel dates and I'm flexible with where I stay. I might look into one of the older resorts like Old Key West. So because Old Key West is a little bit older, the points charts are not as high here, and they're never going to be, because again, remember, that total number of points was given to Old Key West at the beginning, and it's always going to be that way, even if the dates shift around a little bit. So if I'm looking at Old Key West and I want to stay in that 1-bedroom villa, but I'm flexible with my travel dates, let's just look at June again. That 1-bedroom villa is going to cost me 190 points. So this is a little bit more than the accommodations at the hotels on the monorail loop. That said, it is a much larger room and you still have access to all the Disney parks via the bus transportation. And you're actually right next to Disney Springs, which is pretty cool. That's nice and convenient. I believe you can take a water taxi right over to Disney Springs, or you can walk. So for this situation, I might say, let's do 200 points. But remember, like I said before, if you are not an every year to Disney traveling family, then maybe you do a 100-point contract and you bank or borrow your points every other year. So you can still do the 200-point vacation, but you would only do it every other year. Hopefully that makes sense. So there are countless scenarios that you can run based on your family size, based on your travel preferences, and based on your resort preferences, right? It just really depends on those 3 factors and some other things as well, like your budget. But really, those are the things that you need to consider when you're determining how many points you need. And everyone's situation is different. So it's really hard to say exactly how many points are going to be appropriate for your family without knowing the specifics of your family. I'm happy to chat through some situations with you in the comments below. I do not work for Disney Vacation Club. I do not work for Disney. Like I said, I work for my local school system. I just love this program and it has done so much for my family already just this year in our first year membership. And I want to be able to share that with other families. So feel free to drop your questions below and we can talk all about what might work best for your specific needs. And then in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can save money on your initial contract based on whether you purchase directly through Disney or you purchase through a resale contract. So we can get into detail about what that is, what that looks like, and some reputable places to purchase those from. I'm also planning an FAQs video to have at the end of this series. So I'm going to try to answer some of the questions that I've already been asked. So feel free to drop additional ones below. And I hope that this video has been helpful. I would love to connect with you in the comments below and give you some feedback based on your specific travel preferences. Or if you want to connect on Instagram, be sure to hop over there and connect with me on there. See you next time.